If you were to ask me what is the biggest difference between the golf swings of the golfers that I help on a week-to-week basis and the top, the elite of the elite, I would say it's trail arm. How that moves in the golf swing is key to you improving your golf. And in this video, we're going to break it down into 4 different sections. When you put all these 4 together, you're going to have a trail arm which works fantastically well and it's going to help you hit some better golf shots. So let's go through the first thing that we can do with this trail hand or trail arm. Take my setup, I'm going to hold the forearm, and I can, with my wrist, move the golf club up and down. This, not in this exact way, but this is a massive, massive source of power. This is wrist set, wrist cock, whatever you want to term it, doesn't really matter, we need it in the golf swing. So I'm going to give you a really simple exercise on how you can feel it and sense it in your golf swing. When we do this correctly, when you get yourself to around about halfway into your backswing, you should have around about a 90-degree angle between your lead arm and the golf club. This would be a good amount of wrist set, this would be not enough wrist set. So I'm going to take a golf ball, and I'm going to very simply place it directly behind the golf ball I'm setting up to, and around about whatever that is, 3.5 feet. I'll just move it a little bit further so you can see it against those golf balls. Now, if I was to just stand, hold the golf club in my trail hand, and just assume some sort of posture. Start with the golf club in front of the golf ball, and I want you to do a little test. And tell me in the comments whether you pass or fail. I want you to, with your trail arm, just swing the golf club back. And you're going to do one of 2 things. You're either going to do this, which would be quite common. Notice how the arm is straight and the club is away from me. Or you might do this. That's the one that we want, where I'm taking the weight of the club, which is focused down here. That's the balance point of the club, that's where we feel the weight. That weight is below my hands. And in this little movement, I take that weight, and using that movement that we discussed, I move that weight above my hands. And when I move the weight above my hands, the golf club suddenly feels incredibly light. I can hold it in just 2 fingers. So I'm taking the weight of the club and I'm moving it above my hands. That is effectively me using this movement. You can see when I do that, it moves the weight upwards, eventually above my hands. Now the reason this is so important is because that's your power. Okay, if I said to you, stand here and just thump the ground, you could do that with a fair bit of power because you're using your wrists in that way. So the first little exercise is simply to say, can I get this end of the golf club, which is the grip, to point at the golf ball? Take a setup, start here, swing it back, and you can see it points to the golf ball. And I can just start to create this little swing, and what I'm starting to do is appreciate that it's the weight of the club that I'm controlling. If I get too tense, I'm too stiff through my wrists and my hands and arms, it becomes very difficult to do that. And this might be your instinctive move. So it's going to highlight it straight away. Now, when you've done that a couple of times, just put both hands on and just do the same thing. Just start to get the weight moving above your hands in the backswing, get the grip to point down at the ball. And what that's telling you is you've started to engage the wrists. That, when we come to the downswing, is going to give you some power. We've got power. Let's tick that off. What we're now looking for is some control. It's no good if we've got powerful shots that go all over the place. So again, the right wrist is responsible for that. We're now talking about this movement. So you can see how my wrist is pretty neutral. I can move it this way, so palm up, or this way, palm down. This is what we call flexion. This is what we call extension. In the golf swing, we need these movements. We absolutely need them. So let's look at where my right wrist would be at setup. Pretty flat. Okay, maybe not exactly flat, but pretty flat. So the back of my forearm and the back of my hand are pretty much in a line. When I make my backswing, what is my right wrist like? Well, it is definitely not flat anymore. It is completely bent back, almost as much as it can be. Now, when it's in that position, in that condition, that club face is going to be pretty neutral. Watch what happens if I move it to a more neutral position. That wrist is now much closer to what it was at the start. That club face is now way, way open. The toe of the club hangs a lot more vertically down. Club face is open. So if I have my wrist in this neutral position and I maintain its neutral position, I'm going to have a club face which is way, way open. So first little exercise, you can just move the golf club away to begin with. Put your palm down here. You can see how it's pretty neutral, and just start to learn how a little bit of body rotation moves the hand. But as you do that, you're going to need to add in some of this movement. So you can see how I'm pulling the fingers on my trail hand back towards the forearm or the shoulder or the elbow on my trail side. This is what's going to happen in the takeaway. And what that does is it means that you're bending your right wrist back, which controls the face. Now, I don't know a golfer on the planet who doesn't say to me, I'd love to be able to control that club face. I'd love to be able to return it squarer more often to give me straighter shots, along with the power that we've already got you. So if I do a little takeaway and I stop at this point, take the club away, my left hand away, look where my right hand is. You can see it's in that bent back position, and that happened from setup to here. Okay, what we don't want is that takeaway to get like this, where the face is open and that right wrist is in this very sort of neutral position. So absolutely, let's start without a golf club. Let's learn how this right wrist bends in the takeaway. Palm is facing down at the ground. And then when I hit golf shots, the way I like to think about this is I take my palm and I always want it pointing away from me. So this is down towards the target. As we go back, palm is away from me, palm is away from me, palm is away from me. That's how I'm going to feel my golf swing. So from here, I go palm is away, palm is away, palm is away. That puts me in that beautiful position. So we've got to control the club face. Right wrist is responsible for that. And now we come on to shape of swing. So when I refer to shape of swing, I'm talking about, are you someone who's got the club very steep? Are you someone who's got the club very shallow? Or are you, someone who's got the club about on plane? I'm going to teach you how to get it about on the right angle. It's not an exact science. There's plenty of golfers out there who get it a little bit steep, a little bit shallow. I want you to avoid the extremes, the really steep positions. Well, what contributes to that is, I'm sure you've guessed it, it's trail arm. But this time it's the rotation of the trail arm. So watch this. I'm going to take my hand, I'm going to put some bend in it. In the backswing, the arm bends like this, but it also rotates. And you can see how I can rotate my arm in both directions. I've got a little bit more movement this way than I have this way, but this is rotation. I'd love you to stand up and do these exercises with me so you can feel what's happening in your golf swing. So as I go back, this is my wrist set. There's my bend in my wrist. That club looks pretty steep. How do I get it onto good playing? I rotate my arm. That gets me into this perfect position. So now we can add in wrist set, the bend of the wrist and the rotation of the arm. That's got me into this perfect position. All right arm. Obviously my left arm isn't even on the golf club there. So with just one arm, I can create power, club face control, and I can set the plane for my golf swing. That's really important because the plane allows us to create a pretty good path. It's no good if I'm over here, way too steep, or vice versa, no good if you're really in here flat. You're going to be likely to have path issues, which is going to give you curve on the ball, which is unwanted. So this time, we're going to go back to our original drill. This is the golf ball that we had set up, and we were looking at that from a face on. This time, we're looking at that from a down the line viewpoint. So as I set up, one hand on the club, set it in front. I like that as an exercise. It gives the club a little bit of momentum. And I'm working backswing, set the plane. Backswing, set the plane. And like I said, it doesn't have to be exact, but I can tell, and hopefully you can as well, that's about on line with that ball. About is fine. Let's avoid this. Let's avoid this. Those are what we're trying to avoid, not the 1 inch to 2 inch away from that. So back and here, back and here. And by this little movement here, which feels to me relatively easy, relatively smooth, relatively tension-free, I'm creating so many good things which I need in my golf swing. I need those things to be able to hit long shots, solid shots, and straight shots, and do it consistently. So those exercises are going to help you understand how to move that trail arm. I'm going to finish with one exercise on the downswing. This is one of my favourite little demonstrations to do on the downswing, to really just get the downswing covered really simply. Because those things that we did in the backswing, we've effectively got to undo them on the downswing because we've got to get back to the ball. This is how you're going to feel that really, really simply. Take an alignment stick, okay? If it has got a pointy end, have that one here, hold it in the middle. Pointy end is going to go up to the side of you. What you're going to do from here is you're going to make the move that you just made. It's going to feel a bit different because this is lighter, but we make that move. There's that move we just made. And what I'd love you to do here is go right through to follow through and spear the alignment stick into the ground about where the ball is. Give or take, it didn't quite stay in the ground. The ground is quite firm here in Verdura, which is good. Try again. There we go, into the ground. Now, what are we looking for? Well, we're looking for it to be stuck in the ground. That's really important, we'll come to that in a moment, why. But look at the angle of that. Notice how it's tilted out to the right a little bit. That's a really, really good sign. Because what so many of you will do, even if you make this beautiful backswing, you will release that right arm early. If I release it early, I'm not going to spear it into the ground, more likely to spear it into myself. So to spear it into the ground, we have to maintain those angles as we shift into our lead side. That's really, really good. And we also mentioned the angle. Well, look what happens if I get the club steep. I use that right arm incorrect in the way down. Suddenly I'm in a position where I can't really get that alignment stick angled out to the right. It's more likely to be speared in towards my toes and actually be angled the opposite way. So by trying to spear it into the ground means I maintain these angles. And by trying to get it into the ground at this angle, it really keeps the rotation correct in my trail arm. So let me show you that once more. I just go little backswing, and then we spear it into the ground. That's what you're looking for. Into the ground on an angle. That's telling me that I'm holding on to these angles that I've created until I need them, which is through impact. So many of you will be undoing those far too soon. So let's finish this with a swing, so we can put them all together. But trust me, if you want to improve, that trail arm is so key. It will be the difference between you playing the golf that you currently play and you playing your best golf.